Hi everyone, I'm Ghost Note, and in this video I'm going to go over my starter character for the Betrayal League in Path of Exile, a cold damage over time occultist using Cold Snap, Cold Snap, and Vortex. This isn't really a build guide, although I will go over what I did later. It's more of an impression video specifically from an SSF viewpoint, as a lot of my videos will be. So I'll go over the basics of the build and gearing and what have you, and then I'll show what I did, gear, links, passives, ascendancy, whatever. And then I'll discuss a few details and some possibilities of what I might do different. So let's get into it. Now, if you don't know, Vortex and Cold Snap both had the damage over time component of their damage significantly increased in this patch. As well, there's a new cold damage over time multiplier stat that was added. You can find that on gear, the tree, and in the occultist ascendancy, and that all that will further enhance the already increased damage over time from those two skills. This build is a great league starter. I started with it. It was wonderful. It requires minimal gear to get going, which is great for SSF, and you can get into yellow and red maps easily on 2-4 links, which is fantastic. As for leveling, start out, pick whatever skill you like best for leveling. Doesn't really matter. The important thing is you get Cold Snap at 16 and Vortex at 28. So when you get Cold Snap at 16, put it in, link it with Elemental Focus. At that time, probably Controlled Destruction. Eventually, Hypothermia and Bone Chill. I would take out Controlled Destruction and use those other three as your 4 link. Same thing with Vortex. And then your 5th link would be Controlled Destruction. And then your 6th link, I would probably use a Conk effect, concentrated effect on a Vortex, and put the Cold Snap in a Shaper Helm, which I will discuss in a second. Yeah. Oh, and also don't forget to get a Vol Cold Snap, because that will be another additional damage source. You can get it from lots of different places now, Vol side areas, the Incursion Temple, from Delve, from the lab, it'll drop sometimes, or just from a straight corruption using a Vol Orb. Lots of options. Lastly, I don't necessarily recommend Arctic Breath, which is the other skill they changed with and added a damage over time component to. I tried it out, and it felt like it really needed cast speed, projectile speed, and maybe even pierce, which I don't get any of in my tree. So I wouldn't recommend it if you're looking to build around these other two skills, but try it out. You might like it. You might decide to make a build around it. For gearing, the hat slot is very important, the headpiece. Because this is where you can get a lot of damage, a lot of options, a lot of good options. The best one is probably a Shaper Helm with Hypothermia and increased AoE as links, because that's a pseudo 6 link, right? Put your Cold Snap in there, put your Vortex in your chest. You've got 2 6 links if you can get all the links together. Regardless, really good helm to get. You can also craft +1 to AoE gems on a helm now. It's good and it can carry you. It's a little bit expensive for SSF. It costs a divine. You can craft that on gloves as well. Again, costs a divine. That is an option if you've got divine suspend and you feel like doing it. One other thing, Rhyme Gaze, they've changed. It still has concentrated effect as a link in it, but it now has cold damage over time multiplier. It's not terribly hard to find. I found 3, I think, already. It is an RNG thing to find, so you may not find it, but if you do find it, it is a great option to use. It's a pseudo 5 link. And also don't forget Delve fossils, frigid fossils specifically. You can craft -9 cold resist to nearby, -9% cold resist to nearby enemies. If you can craft that on a Shaper Helm with Hypothermia and increased AoE, that would be a pretty good helm. Other than that, for gearing and stats, you really want to look for the new cold damage over time multiplier stat, like I said. It's available on one-handed weapons up to 38%, staves up to 75%, as well as it's also available on Shaper Gloves, Shaper Amulet, on Cobalt, and on Viridian Jewels. You can also craft it via the new Unveiled mods, but it only goes up to 20% on one-handers and 40% on two-handers, so about half of what you can actually find. So keep that in mind. Other than that, cold damage, area damage, spell damage, generic damage, and damage over time will all scale the damage really well. You don't need penetration because that upfront hit is the only thing that would benefit from it, and you're not really trying to scale it. Doesn't do much, doesn't do anything for the cold degen. And lastly, cast speed. It's good quality of life for like your Flame Dash, your Frost Bomb, your Orb of Storms. It's not strictly necessary though. they don't have neither spell has a long cast time. You'll get some just traversing the tree, maybe on gear. Wouldn't really stress about it, I guess. Oh, and one other thing. The +1 to charges craft that you can do now. You can craft +1 frenzy, endurance, power charges. It's actually not that helpful for this. It sounds like it would be, and I thought it would be at first, until I realized +1 minimum frenzy charge just means you always have a frenzy charge available. But in order to bypass the cooldown on Cold Snap, you have to spend a frenzy charge, and you can't spend your minimum frenzy charge. If you've got one, you can't spend it if that's your minimum, I guess is the best way to put it. So it's actually not as helpful as you might think. Just thought I'd point that out. As far as defensive stats go, life or ES, it doesn't matter. You're an occultist. Either will do in this situation. I found it a little bit hard to find a consistent defensive stat to complement the playstyle, but that might have been just because I was just starting out and gear was hard to come by. You can use whatever flasks you'd like. Because you don't need any unique flasks. So you can craft warding, grounding, dousing, whatever on flasks. It's great because you don't need to worry about, hey, I need an Atziri's to scale my damage, because it doesn't do it. There's no uniques really needed for the build, but one that I would strongly recommend is Malachai's Artifice. They removed the elemental equilibrium, hard phrase to say, damage penalty on it. So now it just works just like the Keystone, except it's whatever skill you have, socket it in there. Socket it in an Orb of Storms, cast that, puts elemental equilibrium up. Things are vulnerable to cold damage. It's a great damage boost. Highly recommended. The other one that I used was Carcass Jack. They've upped the AoE and area damage on it quite significantly. I happen to find one. It's really easy to color for this build as well, just the way it works out, the stats on it. So that's very useful. Other than that, Rhyme Gaze, like I mentioned, and also Vol Caress, the gloves that add plus to Vol Gems. You could put your Vol Cold Snap in there. That is a league-specific unique, a little bit hard to find, a little RNG. If you found a pair, though, definitely an option. Lastly, movement speed is really good on this build, I find, just because of the way you're constantly moving around and dropping areas. They're not huge, but being able to move to a different place really quick is good. Using a Quicksilver is awesome, and also you don't really have a consistent, at least the way I build it, you don't have a consistent movement skill. I used Flame Dash, which has a cooldown. Can run out of it. I didn't have room for Shield Charge. That's an option, but I found being able to move around really quickly and drop vortexes everywhere was really good. Map mods. There were only 2 that I found were really problematic. No regen was doable, but only with a mana flask. Would not recommend it. It was a pain. Would not do it. I rolled it on a couple and I was like, I don't want to re-roll these maps. Yeah, I wouldn't do it again. And Ellie Reflect is the big one. Don't run it. You'd have to be super careful not to hit anything with the upfront damage of Cold Snap or Vortex, which is still fairly substantial. It will kill you. I tried it. But you'd have to drop it and run away and just let things walk into your degens. It's just a pain. I would roll over it. Yeah, the positives of this build, it's an easy league starter. There's no real gear requirements. Some of the ones I mentioned are good, but not massive gear requirements to get it going. The tree does a lot of the work, and it's 4-link viable for a long time, so it's really good in that way, especially for SSF. It's a fun play style. Instant Vortex feels really great, and the slows that you get via Chill, and I use Temp Chains, provide good defense. It's an active play style. There's lots of keybinds, so if you like that, if you like doing lots of things, dropping, you've got 2 main spells plus some enhancers, so there's lots to do. So if you like that, it's good. And Uber Lab is not strictly necessary. It's great quality of life. It's a cherry on top of the build for sure, and I recommend it. But if you're having trouble finding your trials in SSF, it's not strictly necessary. The negatives, there's a lot of buttons, so you're facing a keybind crunch, which a lot of builds seem to have now. You've only got those 7 to 8, depending on what you do, keybinds, and some stuff's going to get left out. I'll go over what I did and what I would probably put in and leave out later. It's a bit difficult in terms of stats, depending on what you want. Like, for instance, strength and dex. I used a stone golem, so I wanted some strength. I used temp chains, and I wanted it as high a level as possible. I needed some dex. The tree spans a little bit, starting at which it's going to do that, so just keep in mind, it's a little bit difficult to get stats right at the start. Shouldn't be as big as an issue as time goes on. Movement can feel a little bit clunky, like I said, due to not having that enough gem slots to either add a shield charge or add something, or not having enough attack speed for like a leap slam or a shield charge or something like that. You don't have that consistent movement skill, so it can be a little bit of a pain. I felt it was mostly okay with a Quicksilver and a Flame Dash, but try it and see, play around with stuff. Being stunned really sucks. For some reason, even though Vortex is instant, you can be stunned as you cast it, and if you do, your cooldowns will start on both Vortex and Cold Snap if you're stunned out of them, so you can be locked out of your spells occasionally, which does not feel good. Stuns are annoying. It suffers a bit from no leech. There's no upfront damage leech that I picked up anyway. You could, I suppose, but I felt it was kind of a waste, so you're relying on regen and flasks mainly, so just keep that in mind. The sustain can be a little iffy, although it's never really a problem for me. And finally, a big thing to keep in mind, the new Mastermind fight is a little bit annoying with this with these skills, just because she's so mobile and your damage fields are so static. You'll drop something and then she'll move, so you'll drop it where she is, and 2 seconds later she'll move. She's never in your damage for a long period of time, and sometimes you almost have to anticipate her being places. It's a little annoying. You'll want to do that content. Keep it in mind. You can overcome it. I did. It's just a little bit of a pain. All right, well, I guess that's about it for me yammering on about stuff. I'll show you what I did anyway and give you an idea. So here she is, my lovely little witch with her banner and her icicles and her crabby pet. Isn't she beautiful? I will show you my tree first. I went up here and got Breath of Rhyme, cold damage, the new cold damage over time multiplier. I was filling this out. This is where I would go next. Life, Jewel Socket, AoE. I don't think you can actually see my cursor right now. Anyway, AoE. Went down through here, down to the Templar. Got Amplify for more AoE, spell damage, all that general stuff. Got some regen. Like I said, I was relying on that. Then I went over towards the Shadow and got Fingers of Frost, which has cold damage multiplier and cold damage. Good stuff. Growth and Decay, damage over time. Elemental damage through here. More damage over time. And then I went down and I actually picked up Acrobatics and Phase Acrobatics. I'm not sure I would do that again. I did it mainly to have the dex for Temp Chains, so I could level it all the way, and I thought it would be a decent defensive style, and it was, but I'm not sure I would do that again. Ascendancy, I went Void Beacon because it has the -20 cold res now. This has cold damage over time multiplier, this little node. And Frigid Wake, which is really fun. Can't be chilled, can't be frozen. Don't need that on a flask or anywhere. Cold damage over time multiplier, of course. The freeze is just a nice added bonus. It's an interesting thing, the extra chance to freeze unique enemies and regular enemies. And the nearby chilled enemies deal 10% reduced damage with hits. Good defense. And then I went a life route, so I went with Profane Bloom. Helped a little bit with clear. And Malediction, which gave me, that was my Uber Lab point, gave me the extra curse. It did add a lot, but like I said, it was quality of life, and it's not necessary to get going. You could also do an ES version. I have a friend who did that. Went Wicked Ward, Vile Bastion. I think it would work great. You'd have to gear a little bit differently, obviously, and I don't personally like ES builds all that much, but if you do, it'll work wonderful. Let's see. Next, we will look at gearing and links, I suppose. Whoops. Alright, so we'll start here in the chest. I have Cold Snap, Ball Cold Snap, I guess. Linked with Hypothermia, Elemental Focus, Control Destruction, and Bone Chill. Like I say, my 5th link was Control Destruction, so my 4 links were same as they are up here. I guess, yeah, well, yeah, Hypothermia is in the Helm. And my 6th link would be Conk Effect with Vortex in this, actually, and I would put Cold Snap in the Helm. You could try Efficacy, but I think Conk Effect would be the best. Just use Efficacy if you find your AoE isn't good enough. If you don't have a Carcass Jack, you may feel that way. And then in the Helm, you've got Vortex, Control Destruction, Elemental Focus, Bone Chill, and this is linked with Hypothermia in the Helm. Here in the weapon, I have Dread Banner, which gives -21 accuracy to nearby enemies. It's the only reason I'm using it. Works well with my defenses, and I had some mana left over to reserve. With Increased Duration and Vol Righteous Fire, which I'm not using, and I should be. Use it. Yeah, I just didn't have room for it in my keybinds. Then we had Enfeeble, Temp Chains, and Blasphemy. Really good. I would recommend Enfeeble over Frostbite until you get a 3rd curse. If you can, I'll talk about that in a second. but I found that the defense is really important, and Frostbite, while it's really good damage, not necessary to get your damage up there. Jewelry is mostly just generic life and resist stuff. I found an opal, which is nice. In the gloves, I have Spell Cascade, Arcane Surge, Increased Duration, and Frostbomb. Good for lowering defenses, get my Arcane Surge up. Spell Cascade, not strictly necessary, but it ups the level of Arcane Surge and provides more area for my Frostbomb. And then in the boots, I have Faster Casting, Flame Dash, Summon Stone Golem, Arcane Surge. Summon Stone Golem, not strictly necessary, but that regen was nice. The taunt's nice. Yeah. And, yeah. Other than that, like I said, just generic stuff for all my jewelry. The unique Malachi's Artifice with Orb of Storms. Triggers EE. Really good. Highly recommend it. Carcass Jack. Yeah, I crafted that damage over time multiplier on this weapon. But you can definitely find better, especially dropped. It'd be up to double. Flasks. Nothing special. You're able to put lots of good suffixes on stuff because you don't need unique flasks. But yeah, just dousing, warding, grounding, adrenaline, staunching. Pretty standard stuff. I believe that is about it for that stuff. Yeah. Okay. So, what would I do different if I was going to build this again? I might do dodge. I might try instead to use Mind Over Matter. Build over towards the left side of the tree, pick up 3 curses, get some mana reservation so I could use that. I don't know. Use armor instead. I'm not sure. Dodge and everything that I did felt good when it felt good, but then when I got hit hard. I would definitely, like I said, try and get 3 curses. The new Shaper Neck that gives you a free Temp Chains reservation. Tremendous. Other than that, you would need a lot of mana reservation nodes to really make it work, but if you can get 3 curses, Frostbite's a big addition. Aspect of the Spider is another possible addition. I couldn't find it anywhere, but it's obviously really good. Slows, again, compounded with your other slows, plus damage. Good stuff. I would use a All Righteous Fire instead of the Stone Golem. Just do it. I just use the Stone Golem because I don't know. I like the Stone Golem, and I felt I knew the defenses, the regen. Play around with it, but definitely try and get Ball RF in there. It's worth it. I would definitely try and find a way to be stun immune, or at least stun resistant, because getting locked out of your spells due to the cooldowns does not feel good. And I might try and Trickster, I guess. Good damage over time there, lots of good defensive options. It's a really solid all-around ascendancy. I don't think I would try Inquisitor. That is an option, but I feel like you'd be wasting some of that. Occultist / Trickster Ascendant could be an option. I did Occultist because it had new shiny toys, and it's powerful. I think that's everything, guys. In conclusion, this is a great league starter. It can carry you into the end game really easily, especially if you put the time into it and the gear into it. If you gear it up, it will handle everything comfortably. I'm quite confident. Just as an example, I downed Red Elder easily with a 5-link and a 4-link, I think, on minimal gear in the first couple days. I know Red Elder's not a big measuring stick, but just to give you an idea, it's a great starter for that. I might come back to it at some point if I get some good gear drops and really flesh it out, and just to see how good it is, and if so, maybe I'll put up a video of that. I'll link the paste bin and the passive tree in the description below. The paste bin for POB. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you liked it, or even if you didn't, and I'll be producing more stuff like this in the future for some of my other builds. Feel free to come check out my stream. I'm on Twitch at GhostNote Live. I'll link that in the description below as well. Leave your comments or questions below, and I'll get to them. We'll try and have a good discussion about this build. That's about it. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Have a good day, everybody.